Welcome to Beyond Your Job, the podcast where we talk about work, life, balance, and everything in between. I'm your host, Iris Clapper, a former attorney and writer with a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. I'm also a certified professional coach and consultant. So while that's a mouthful, the takeaway is that I'm fascinated by the psychology of work and its impact on how we live. This podcast was born from something I kept seeing in my clients, in my friends, and definitely in myself. You can be thriving in your career, but if you're burning out, it doesn't just stay at work. It permeates home life, marriage, relationships, and of course your emotional and physical well-being. During each episode, I sit down with professionals from diverse industries to gain insight, inspiration, and a few laughs while having honest, thoughtful conversations where everything is fair game as long as they're up for it. I feel like I'm always saying this, but I am truly so excited to have a very special guest here with me today, my very dear friend, Jodi Eisner. Jodi is a professional home organizer, although her path to starting her own business has not been traditional. She graduated from the University of Tampa with a degree in psychology and went on to earn a master's degree in social work from the University of Pittsburgh. She specialized in drug and alcohol addiction counseling for more than a decade before launching her own business as a professional organizer. Jodi was one of the founding members of Pittsburgh Professional Organizers and also served as president of the local chapter of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing. Jodi went on to earn a special certification as a home organizer and for the last 25 years has worked in both homes and businesses with hundreds of clients. It's probably fair to say thousands of clients at this point. The name of her business is Method to the Madness, Organizational Solutions for a Crazy World. Welcome, Jodi.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here.
So I guess the first and most obvious question is, how do you go from specializing in alcohol and drug addictions and working with patients to home organizing? That's quite the transition.
It is quite the transition. I kind of feel like I stumbled upon it, and I initially thought I made it up as a profession because who knew 25 years ago that was even a thing. So I had a friend. Unfortunately, she was going through a divorce, and she was thinking that she was kind of overwhelmed and she had all her bills piling up next to her nightstand because she was afraid she was going to forget to pay her bills. And let me come over and let me just kind of help make it a little bit more personal for you and claim your space again. And I went over and we just spent hours and hours and hours decluttering and making room for her things. And all the while she was boxing up her soon-to-be ex-husband's items, putting them in a box. She, of course, had a few choice words while I was writing on the boxes what was in the boxes, the contents.
Not the choice words, just the contents.
Just the contents. No choice words on my part.
Right.
And she, when we were finished, she said of all the things that people had offered to help with, that was really the most cathartic for her, and it felt very empowering. And it was kind of in that moment that I realized, and of course my children were very young, and it was nice at the thought of not having to go back to work full time. So I thought I was making it up. I thought, being like just sort of decluttering and organizing and reclaiming your space and sort of re-strategizing how you use your home. And then, of course, I found out that there was a local association, which at the time there were only 3 of us in Pittsburgh. And then, of course, there's a national association, which is, pretty significant. And the funny part of that, the ending of that particular story, is that they did divorce. Her ex-husband did remarry. And 7 years later, I was hired by her ex-husband and new wife. And lo and behold, there were my boxes unopened with my handwriting. And I knew what was in them. So the story continued.
That's amazing. So how do you go from just helping out a friend in need, to 7 years later, business thriving enough that randomly the ex-husband and the new wife call you?
Now, one of the things that my father-in-law said, he didn't often say things that I took to heart, but he used to say, throw your stuff everywhere, you never know where it's going to stick. And that's what I started doing. I printed up business cards. Of course, I came up with, I can't take the credit for the name of the business. That was all my sister. I had business cards printed up, and I just started telling people this is what I was doing. And I got one really good client, and it just started to grow from there.
You went and you helped your friend. You were obviously very effective at it. And often people want to help, they don't know how to help, and maybe they're not good at what they're trying to help with, which is no one's fault and very, very common. But in your case, you parlayed that inherent talent into a passion with some purpose in life. So, talk to me a little bit about that, because lately I've been thinking a lot about where our passion meets our purpose and what we do every day.
I think really having the background as a social worker and really understanding that when you're working with someone, you really have to kind of tap into their way of thinking and their ultimate goal. I mean, I have had so many people over the years say to me, I love what you do. I want to do that. I can do that. And people think just because you're organized that you can work with other people. And I don't see it that way. I don't, being organized it's a skill that anybody can learn. So it's not the skill of being organized. It's the skill of how do you work with people so that they accomplish their goals? How do you do that in a way so that you understand what is getting in the way of them not being organized or not meeting the goals? And so, people have mental health issues. People have ADHD. People have, OCD. People have all kinds of issues that are potentially getting in the way of how they want to live in their homes. And so, my job is to it's the stuff is just secondary. Anybody can go in and just clean up someone's home. So the stuff is really secondary. It's really a matter of understanding how you want your home to function, what works, what doesn't, how does your brain see the things around you, what makes you feel comfortable. I've had clients over the years say to me, I want every ounce of my walls to be covered in pictures and photos and artwork. If that's what makes you feel safe and comfortable, who am I to say that's wrong? So, clutter is defined by, the definition of clutter is unmade decisions. If you've made a decision, it's no longer clutter. It's how you want to live.
So it's really this random stuff that we either don't give thought to or comes from a place of there's a reason why I'm living this way.
Most people, when they're feeling overwhelmed, so I call this behavior shifting. It's just kind of my own terminology. You pick up a pile of papers or whatever you have laying on the desk and you're tired of looking at it on the desk, so you move it to the table. Then you look at it on the table for about a week and you're tired of seeing it on the table, so you move it to a different table. And you're really just shifting. You're not making any decisions. You're not really looking at it and making a decision, do I need this or do I not need this? Or can I put it away, or where should I put it away? You're just seeing it as kind of white noise that gets shifted from place to place. So when I am initially working with clients, the model that I use, it's not anything real sophisticated. It's called the Kindergarten Model of Organization. And it's from a book. Julie Morgenstern wrote a book called Organizing from the Inside Out. Simple concept. If you can imagine a kindergarten classroom, 25 5-year-olds The teacher can say time to clean up, and all of those children, regardless of the type of homes they have come from, can scamper around that room and clean it up like that. And the reason they can do that is everything is zoned, everything is easily accessible. They don't have to climb on a shelf to put a block away. So the crafts are in the craft zone, the blocks are in the block zone, et cetera, et cetera. And so they can clean that room up super easily with, very little instruction because they know where everything goes. And that's sort of the concept that your home should function. And each individual comes up with their own zones. It's not like I walk in your home and say, this is how this should be this zone. No, tell me what you need to accommodate for, and then my job is to kind of be creative, and help you make that come to fruition.
So this is fascinating, and I know that you and I have spoken about this offline, but you're really breaking it down for me now, and fascinated by how people's brains process information differently and work differently. So for example, for me, it is harder to be messy and have clutter. It takes more effort for me and ignore it than to deal with it. So I think that I have some systems that I don't even consciously have until you and I sit down and talk. When I get my mail, I immediately take the pile of what I consider to be junk mail and dump it off into the recycling bin before it even comes into the house. And I take the envelopes, everything comes electronically, but there is an occasional bill. Take it out of the envelope, put that into the recycling bin, and only put those bills on my desk. And when I pay them, they immediately go into a shredding pile. And that's not to say that I'm so great. That's to say that my brain is organized and structured in a certain way that if I were to do it differently, if I were to bring that pile inside, put it in the kitchen, my husband comes home from work, he puts his folders and his stuff in the kitchen, and that night during dinner, I have to look at those two piles, that's harder for me than dealing with it, because for me, dealing with it is just the 2 seconds of the way that my brain processes it, and I just do it. So I guess all that to say, or to ask, when you go into people's homes, do you see that that's going on and that that's who they are and what their comfort level is? Or there are a series of questions that you ask to get to that? Because if you told me, just have a junk pile, you're fine, deal with it on Friday, I can't. I just can't.
Yeah. So you're bringing up a couple of different points. So the first thing that you're bringing up is the idea of systems. And you have just organically created a system for yourself because that's how your brain works. But for people that don't have that sort of organizational component that or they've never been taught, like I said, it is a learned skill. And if you've never been taught that skill, you don't organically come up with a system. So let me use the example of laundry because it's a system that, we all can relate to.
My least favorite chore. The laundry is the bane of my existence.
And I don't care whose household you walk into, mail and laundry are the two things that keep coming in, and if you don't have a good system, it piles up and piles up and piles up. So let's take the example of laundry. If I walk into someone's home and I see clothes all over the house, which I see often, and I know that's hard for you to wrap your brain around.
It really is.
But it is, but you'd be surprised. So I can walk into someone's home and I see laundry all over the house. The first question that I'm going to ask is it clean or dirty? Which kind of surprises people that's the question that I'm asking. Okay. And the reason that I want to ask that question and I need to know the answer, or I'd like to know the answer, is because I want to know where is the breakdown in that system. So think about just the regular pattern, right? So the regular pattern is you get dressed, you come home at the end of the day, you get undressed. What are you doing? Are you dropping your clothes wherever they land? Are you putting them right in the washing machine? They wind up in the washing machine, they wind up in the dryer, they get folded. Why aren't they getting put away? So, and again, depending on whose home I'm working in, if it's dirty laundry, it means there's a breakdown in maybe we need to come up with a system where we have enough bins for however you choose to do your laundry. Do you separate whites, colors, delicates, whatever your separation is? If it's clean laundry, which is a lot of times the problem, why aren't the clean clothes getting put away? Well, they're not getting put away because go back to that kindergarten classroom. If it's not easy to put it away, you're not going to put it away. So if I go to put away my t-shirts and I open the t-shirt drawer and it's jam-packed and I can't fit another t-shirt in that drawer, chances are I'm not going to put my clothes away. I'm just going to let it sit on the floor until, of course, they get dirty again, and now I'm piled up and piled up and piled up. So we might start that process in going through the drawers, cleaning out those drawers, because just to throw this out there, we get 80% use out of 20% of what we own.
80% use out of 20% of what we own. Wow.
That goes for everything. So when you think about your clothes, and I'm not talking seasonally, but in each season, you're wearing the same clothes over and over and over again. Why? Because they look good on you, because they're accessible, because you like it, because people compliment you.
They're at the top of the pile.
They're at the top of the pile, exactly. So you're not digging through to the bottom of that drawer. Chances are the bottom of that drawer, you haven't worn those clothes in 8 years. And so, once we start to clear that out, and now all of a sudden putting away laundry is a simple task, not a complex task, you're more likely to do it.
So is tip number 1, go through your drawers and donate what you don't use? Because that seems so easy and monumental all at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that I always tell people is, and I do this for myself, I have a donation bag next to my closet. If I put something on and it doesn't look good on me today, it's not going to miraculously look good on me tomorrow. Okay? If it frustrates me, if I can't, or if it's damaged in some way, or the button's missing and I'm not a button sewer, I'm going to just put it right in the donation bag. I'm not even going to hang it back up. What's the point?
But there's that disconnect, I think, for people between taking this piece that I got on sale, or taking this piece that was expensive, or taking this piece that my sister gave to me and it means so much to me, and saying, I don't wear it, and putting it in that pile.
That is the hardest part. And what I suggest to people is, and even if you need to write down your set of rules, or at least be conscious of what those rules are, so that you're not necessarily making a decision on you are making a decision on each individual item, but you're making the decision based on a set of rules that you've determined. So this is the hardest part, especially for women. We all know every dollar that we have spent on every item of clothing that we have. We just do.
We just do.
We just do. Either you're proud that you got a great deal, or you spent way more money than you want to tell anybody. So, but I would really encourage you to take that piece out of the equation. It's not a reason to clutter up your closet. I will sometimes joke with people and say, you need the hanger more than you need this piece of clothing. You need the empty space more than you need this piece of clothing. So if it is not serving you, we need to let it go. We're not putting it in the garbage. We are donating it. There are a lot of amazing places that Dress for Success, It doesn't just have to be to Goodwill or, the veterans. There's so many amazing places that you can take your once loved clothing and donate it so somebody else can benefit from it that is no longer serving you.
I love that. So tip number one is to have that huge bag or bin or whatever it is right there in your closet to make it easier for yourself. It's there, it's salient. You pick up a piece of clothing, it's not working. I bet all of us could just walk in right now and take 5 things off hangers and just be done with
Exactly.
probably 5,000. And tip number two is to have some rules. So maybe a rule can be if you haven't worn it in a year, or a rule can be and or if it doesn't fit you, and or if it's really out of style. I'll pick on jeggings or skinny jeans. Although I just saw something about them coming back. It's going to be really hard for me when they do. But whatever that is, you have the basket and you have the rule. And the third thing that you touched on, which really resonates for me and how I initially started teaching my children how to part with stuff, because I'm sort of minimalistic, is there are so many people out there who need help. And I don't want to give junk away. I want to give good things away. I want to help women who are in need of suits for job interviews, some of the organizations that you mentioned, and there's so many more. So I think that starting it at a young age is probably helpful also, just to get into that mindset of you're helping yourself, you're helping others, it's not going in the trash.
I mean, I do the same thing with when my kids were little, um, right before, Christmas, Hanukkah, and then their birthdays are January, February. And so we would do, a toy clean out, if you will. And I, was able to take my kids to the women's shelter, and they were able to actually give the toys to those children that were at the shelters. And it's a great lesson when it comes to parents and children. I always discourage parents from getting rid of their children's things without their knowledge. We want to teach that skill. So it's really an important skill for kids to learn. And we don't want to just hide it from them and say they'll never notice. That's not teaching them a skill. Maybe they won't notice, but maybe they will, and then they're not going to necessarily trust that you're not getting rid of their things when they're not around.
Sure, it builds trust and it builds such an essential life skill, which leads to transitions. Let's talk about that a little bit, because we transition from being done playing with certain toys. We transition from being done with our notebooks. I recently found a whole bunch of binders from high school, not mine, my daughter's, and I sent her a quick text. She's in her last semester of law school, and I said, I'm pretty sure you don't need this binder anymore. Statistics. I did take a quick look through it though. But life transitions, we just don't need all that stuff. And also as our kids move out, leaving all that stuff that they no longer need in our homes, in many ways is not sentimental. In many ways is clogging up our homes. We downsize.
And you're bringing up the exact point that I often make with my clients is the language that I use is your home should reflect who you are today. So thinking I'm an empty nester, my husband and I are empty nesters, so our home reflects that. We don't have a house full of dolls, toys, and our children's bedrooms are beautiful, comfortable spaces. So when they come home and they come home to visit, they have a beautiful, comfortable space to unpack and relax and enjoy.
When you go into clients' homes for a project, is the goal to leave the space reflective of who they are today versus who they were? Is that part of the issue?
So that's a question that I would ask up front. again, what is your ultimate goal? And it's funny because I'm actually working with somebody right now whose youngest child is about 11 years old. And so she's getting to the age of, she still kind of plays with some of her childhood Barbies, but she's sort of transitioning. They have also two teenage boys. But if you walk in that house, you think it's a house of toddlers. It's the books on the shelves, which are in the family room space. It's all books for toddlers. So that's interesting to me. So my question to them was, are your children, do they want to be surrounded by these kinds of items? And the answer was no. The kids are feeling frustrated. So now it's a matter of helping the parents to sort of reframe their thinking that we have older children. That can be hard for some parents. We have older children. We want to give them a space where they can invite their friends over. And if we want to keep some of these keepsakes, where can we keep those so that they can feel good to the parents, but we don't have to keep every childhood toy. We don't have to make it look like the actual kindergarten classroom. So,
Well, it's some of the stuff is hard with the sentimental stuff, which I think really resonates for me.
hard.
Faded art projects, the books with
Yeah.
the broken binders. Okay, maybe not all of that, but still, what do we do with all the sentimental stuff? And there's boxes and boxes of it.
So when you say there's boxes of it, when you think about it, what are they doing in boxes? How are they serving you? So, and this same kind of concept is true for if you've had a family member who is deceased and you inherit all of those sentimental items. So, whether it's kid stuff, parent stuff, family stuff in boxes, to me, when it's in boxes, you're not enjoying it, you're not seeing it, it's not triggering a memory. And isn't that what sentimental stuff should do? It should trigger a memory so that you tell the story. That's what sentimental items are supposed to do. So I encourage people to unbox it. Let's see what's in there. And if it's stuff that, it's just memories, let's think about how can you kind of either disperse this stuff sort of strategically around your home so that it brings a smile to your face. If there's that one stuffed animal that you remember your daughter carrying around everywhere and you don't want to get rid of that. So when you have boxes and boxes of sentimental items, first thing you want to do is open all of those boxes. You want to see what's in there. If it's something that you want to keep and you can like disperse that appropriately around your house as a warm reminder of that time in your life. I'll use myself as an example. My grandmother passed away. It's been probably 15 years now. I was very, very close to her. And I have things all over my home, just integrated in my home, of things that belong to her. There isn't a day that goes by that I can't not think about her because she's dispersed everywhere throughout my home. But if I had taken all of those items and just boxed them up, put them in my basement somewhere, how is that serving me? So, there are also other creative ways. People take photos of those items and you can make a book of sentimental items. I've had clients take their children's artwork and turn them into beautiful coffee table books. So there's a lot of fun ways that you can do that it actually serves the purpose of what is a sentimental item supposed to do? It's supposed to remind you of why it's sentimental and tell the story.
So that's tip number 4 is really address those sentimental items, disperse them throughout your house, incorporate them into your life so that you have the feelings that they evoke. And for those art projects and books and all the things that are in boxes, I'm asking for a friend. You can take pictures of those and still have them with you, just in a different form that maybe doesn't take up as much space.
Correct.
I
And
love
it's
that. I
not
have not
easy.
thought of
It's,
that.
I had an adult, she was actually a client of mine from when she was a child, and her mother had hired me, and then now she's an adult. She's a physician and married with her own 3 children. I've been doing this a long time. And she came across all of her medical school notes, binders and binders and binders. And it was a hard decision for her to agree to let go of all of those binders. And one of the things that she had to wrap her brain around was, you don't get to have the white coat without all the notes that you took. So we are not throwing away all of the hard work that you did. You have the white coat. That's the end result. So, again, she was ready to part with that. It was just a hard decision to, as she was looking through it, I remember this studying for this exam, and I remember she did put all the hard work in, and the white coat proves that.
Imagine that your background in psychology and social work helps so much to help people process and come to those decisions, because they're not easy decisions.
No, they're not.
As
And really, that's so much of what I do, is helping people to make good decisions for themselves.
So I imagine that in your travels, you have seen interesting, bizarre, gross, funny, all of the above. What can you share?
Oh gosh, 25 years of being in thousands of homes. Um, yeah, there's been gross. I'm not a critter. I'm not a friend of the critter. I've seen a few critters in my time. I have screamed like a schoolgirl. um, I've seen the
Are you talking
full
about big
on.
critters, small critters inside the house? What are we talking, the garage?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of dead critters. Thank goodness. I've seen the shedding of a snake. I didn't see the actual snake, but I saw the entire shedded skin. That
That would
freaked
be
me
very
out.
hard for me. Inside a house?
Inside a basement.
In a
Yeah,
basement. And
in a
even though I
basement.
kind of intellectually understand that there's very little chance that that snake is still inside the house because they're probably looking for a way to get out, I don't know that I could have stayed on that job. How did you
I
do it?
well, I don't know. It
Just
was
did.
hard. It was really hard. Um, I've seen a lot of you know, personal items, if you will,
Like,
like toys, adult toys that
oh, personal items. I
maybe
see.
I wasn't meant to see.
I see.
But my services are confidential, so it all stays here.
Are you ever told don't go in that drawer or don't do this? This is off limits.
So, just out of respect for my clients, I never open a drawer, a door, a closet without asking for permission first. I don't care if I've been working with you for a year. Every drawer, every cabinet, before I open it, I ask for permission. And if, I've had people say, nope, that one's off limits. And other people just allow me to open whatever you want. But each drawer, I once again say, is it okay if I open this?
How does the overall process work? Someone calls you, and then what happens next? I need help.
So, initial phone call, I get some basic information over the phone. And my first question is always, what prompted you to reach out? Everyone has a different answer. Once we've determined that, yes, this is something that you think you want to move forward with, then I do an initial consultation. In that consultation, which takes about an hour and a half, I don't usually put a time limit to it, but it takes about an hour and a half. Before we walk through the house, I really want to sit down and find out, again, what prompted you to call? What are your goals? What do you hope to get out of this process? And, again, everybody has a different reason for calling. And finding out what works, what doesn't work, where is your source of frustration? And then, kind of deciding how much time is this going to take. There's no magic in what I do as an organizer. It's just a matter of putting in the time and making that happen. I have an amazing team of people that work with me. And depending on what we're working on, it might be a one-person job, it might be a two-person job, it might be a four-person job. And so it just depends on, a lot of times we're kind of doing a lot of shifting. So just to give you an example, I view everybody's home as a puzzle. And so some people's homes I can walk into and I see what the picture is. I can see that it's a picture of a flower. Other people's homes, I have no idea. I have no idea that it's a picture of a flower because everything is everywhere. Regardless of where you are in that puzzle, my job is to take the puzzle apart and put it together seamlessly. So the first thing that we're doing is we're creating our zones. So going back to the kindergarten model, we have the zones. So I need to know what your zones are. Is your kitchen also where you pay your bills? So if that's the case, we need to create a zone for the bills so that they're not just piling up on the kitchen table. They actually have a home to go to. The first thing in the process when in that initial consultation is we want to talk about what the zones are in your particular home. And so, we want to make sure that we accommodate for all the different zones that are important to you. And so again, it's not my job to tell you how to live in your home. It's my job to ask the right questions so that I can help create the zones that will work for you.
So I imagine that it can get tricky in small spaces. Maybe the dining room doubles as an office, but it probably can also get tricky in a large home because maybe the more space you have, the more clutter you have, the more you spread out. So how do you, is there a different approach or is it always the same?
Well, the approach is everything is a container. Your house is a container. If you have a big house, you have a big container. Small house, small container. Every closet is a container. Every drawer is a container. So within each area, you can only own what you have room to contain. So big closet, more clothes. Small closet, less clothes. We can be creative and we can, swap out seasonal kinds of things. But again, it's all determined based on your individual space.
So how would you create, let's say, a workspace in a dining room or a home office that's also a guest bedroom? The dual spaces that people seem to need these days.
I always like to, first of all, I always want to camouflage. So if I'm going to create an office in a dining room, I want it to look like a dining room because I really want you to be able to use your dining room, especially if you want to be entertaining. And so we might take a credenza, for example, and make half of it office supplies or office use. And so make it mobile so that we can, take it out, spread it on the dining room table. When you're ready to use it as a dining room table, we clean it up. Or we can take something on wheels and wheel it to another closet in the house. It's all going to be super easy. I always say easy in, easy out. There's no magic. It's just a matter of being creative.
It's your magic, Jodi. That's why we need you. Do you ever get overwhelmed? Do you ever walk in and say, oh gosh, I don't think I could do this?
If I do, I keep it to myself.
Oh, but then you still work through it?
Yes.
What's overwhelming to you?
Um, I think what's the hardest part is trying to explain to people that this is going to take a lot of time. And what I say to people is if you're willing to put the time in, we can make it happen. That's the hardest part because and for a lot of people, it took years to get to this place of feeling overwhelmed. It's going to take some time to get back to making it more manageable.
I think that one of the nicest, warmest things about you is that your friends don't feel that you're judgmental when you walk into their homes. I think I speak for so many of us when I say that. So how do you manage that? Do you hide it well, or do you really just not treat that as work? I'm sure you see a lot of things in our houses.
If you invite me over for dinner, I am happy to just come for dinner. I am not looking. I sort of joke and say, if you're not paying me, I'm not looking. So I'm really not judging you at all.
Any last tips that you can offer? Simple tips to declutter the space and just make life a little bit easier for people out there listening. They just want to start with something on their own.
Start small. Be kind to yourself. Everybody feels overwhelmed at times. It's never a crime to ask for help, whether that's a friend, whether that's a professional. And, you don't have to start big. You can start small.
Like what?
I often say if you just kind of walk through your house and start cherry picking, that's kind of the term I like to use, because then it's not like this big overwhelming project. All you're doing is walking around your house, maybe taking a box with you. It doesn't matter whether it's an article of clothing, whether it's a tchotchke, whether it's a binder, and just start putting things in a box that are no longer serving you. And once you start to realize that you can lighten your load a little bit and it starts to feel good, it starts to shift a little bit of your thinking and you can start to see things a little bit differently. And then the other thing is if you start to do that and you put things in a box and you seal the box up and you put it in your garage and decide I'll take it away to donation next week, if you can't remember what's in that box, that should tell you something.
That's such a good point. And for people who are ready to go all in for a small or medium or large project with you, how can they reach you?
Best way to reach me is through my email, which is Eisner, EISNER .Jodi, JODI, @gmail.com.
Perfect. And before we leave, I like to do a quick lightning round. Not too much thinking. Whatever comes to mind. Are you up for it?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
I think everybody listening could have guessed that. Early bird or night owl?
Neither.
Neither.
Neither. Wake up late, go to bed early.
Love it. What do you do for fun?
Believe it or not, this is going to shock people. I love flea markets.
It is shocking, but
I know.
Do you buy? I mean,
if I buy something, you need to know exactly where in my home it's going to go.
Okay, that's a good plan. That's another good tip. Mm-hmm. I'm queen of the vacation impulse buy, and yeah, I've noticed that. So I've cut back on that because I've brought home so many pieces of clothing, as soon as they were coming out of the suitcase, I knew I was never wearing that. So I like that tip.
Well, jewelry is small. That's so easy.
What is the last show you binge watched?
90 Day Fiancé.
Oh, very nice. What song instantly puts you in a good mood?
Anything by John Denver?
Awesome. What secret power would you choose if you could?
Being able to predict the future.
I want you to have that secret power. Then you can help me. Who would play you in a movie about your life?
I would say probably Heather Locklear.
That surprised me.
She has really good hair.
And so do you. Do you prefer a short text or a long conversation?
Long conversation.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve. I would say people that are not genuine.
I would second that. And lastly, what's number one on your bucket list right now?
My husband and I are dying to go out to the Grand Canyon. We've not been to the Grand Canyon.
That's going to be amazing. I think that so many of us chase our dreams outside the country. There is a lot to see here. That's going to be a special trip. Thank you so much for today. I'm sure people took a lot of great tips away. Even I did, after you've been through my closet and my house and you've seen all of my areas that I'm proud of and all of my areas of shame. We really, really appreciate having you.
Thank you. This was amazing.
And that's a wrap. If you like this episode, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and share the love. You can always reach out to me through my website, iriseclappercoachingandconsulting.com.